round, as so-called NASA would have you believe, but square, like a box of pizza.
Please tell me you are watching this for laughs. Dear Nat and Moby, do germs really make us sick? I heard that's just a theory. From Parker. Sounds like you've heard about germ theory. It explains how many illnesses and diseases are caused by microscopic organisms. We know them as germs. It's that other word, theory, that throws a lot of people off. I mean, it's the same word random people on the internet use to describe their wild ideas. But germ theory is backed up by tons of evidence or supporting info, like observations of people getting sick after they're exposed to certain germs, and experiments that show how germs spread from person to person, and photos of those germs in sick organisms' bodies. That's what makes it a scientific theory. But gathering evidence is really just the beginning. Coming up with an explanation that makes sense of it is a lot trickier. Well, let's go back to Europe in the 1300s when a deadly disease was ravaging the population. Why are you so literal? This was the time of the Black Death, when 1 out of 3 Europeans died of a mysterious disease. People would get black patches on their skin, high fevers, and nausea. After about a week, they'd usually be dead. It was known that ships were spreading the disease, because when one arrived from a place where people were sick, a wave of illness would follow. But if you waited several weeks before allowing anyone on or off the ship, the illness would be much less likely to spread. At the time, this was seen as evidence that diseases were caused by bad air. Which made sense since hanging around rotting, smelly things often made people sick. And people who had this disease usually didn't smell so great. So, the logic was that making ships wait in harbors gave the bad air time to clear out. Well, yeah, now we know it worked because they were isolating the germs on those ships. But no one knew germs even existed until the 1600s. That's when microscopes were invented. While some scientists began to suspect that germs might cause disease, most still found the bad air theory more convincing. Theories are only replaced once a different theory has more evidence. But a couple of centuries later, the evidence for germ theory started piling up. Like when a deadly illness tore through London in the 1800s. The addresses of those who got sick showed a peculiar pattern. They were clustered in areas where sewage got into drinking water, which suggested the disease spread through something in the water, not the air. Then there was the crisis at a hospital in Vienna, where about a third of mothers died of infections after childbirth. That problem nearly vanished when doctors simply washed their hands. Bad air couldn't explain that, but germs could. And in a lab in France, experiments showed that germs can travel through the air too, which meant germs could be the reason that stinky air made people sick. All of this evidence gave germ theory more weight, but it still wasn't enough. Scientists tend to be really skeptical about new ideas. If there's any room for doubt, they point it out. Evidence suggested germs can cause disease, but no one had directly linked a specific disease to a germ. Until a scientist named Robert Koch came along in the late 1800s. He collected bacteria from a sheep that had an infection and grew those germs in a dish. One kind was unlike any bacteria he found in healthy animals. When he exposed healthy mice to those unusual bacteria, the mice got the same infection the sheep had. It was the strongest evidence yet for germ theory. Even the most skeptical scientists had to accept it as the best explanation. Nope, germ theory will never become a law, no matter how much evidence supports it. In science, a law isn't any more official than a theory. It's just different. Scientific theories can explain how things happen. Scientific laws only describe what happens. That's why they're often expressed as mathematical formulas. Plug your observations into that formula, and it'll spit out what to expect. A law only becomes accepted if it correctly describes what happens every time a scientist applies it. Take the law of gravity. To calculate how gravity will affect objects, just plug in the right measurements and poof. You know exactly what gravity will do in that situation, but not what causes gravity in the first place. That part comes from a theory, general relativity. It explains that objects bend space around them in proportion to their mass, which is why less massive objects fall towards more massive ones. Nah, there are no germ laws. Some areas of science just don't fit neatly into simple formulas, and that's okay. Germ theory's success shows just how powerful theories can be. It's why we no longer worry about the bacteria that caused the Black Death. Knowing how diseases work gives scientists all kinds of tools to stop them, and they're finding new ones all the time. Anyway, can we get back to our own time now? Home sweet home. So, now that you know how theories work, I hope you'll look into all the evidence that Earth is round.
Earth be flat.
Wait, you brought the Black Death Lady back with us? Fine, but she's not staying in my room, and you're taking her to the doctor.
Doctor? Doctor turned me husband into a newt.
Bye.